October 24th, 1929. A man in a suit walks out of the New York Stock Exchange. He sits on the steps. He puts his face in his hands. He has just lost everything, not because he gambled, not because he was lazy, not because he made a single wrong decision that morning. He lost everything because the entire system collapsed around him while he was standing in it. Within 72 hours, $13 billion gone. In today's money, that's over $240 billion. Vanished, not stolen, not spent, just gone. And here's the part that should terrify you. Nobody saw it coming. The newspapers said markets were healthy. The president said prosperity was permanent. The banks said your money was safe. They were all wrong. This is the story of how the richest country on earth broke itself from the inside and dragged the whole world down with it. To understand the Depression, you have to understand the decade before it. Because the 1920s in America weren't just good, they were intoxicating. World War I had just ended. America came out of it not broken, like Europe, but richer. Factories that once made weapons now made cars, radios, refrigerators. The middle class was expanding. People had money they'd never had before. And then someone figured out you didn't even need money to make money. You could borrow it, buy stocks with it, watch the value go up, sell, pay back the loan, and pocket the difference. Banks were handing out loans like candy. Regular working people, teachers, plumbers, secretaries, were playing the market. The Dow Jones rose over 400% through the 1920s. By 1929, stock prices had no relationship to actual company earnings. None. This is what economists call a speculative bubble. Prices rise not because things are actually worth more, but because everyone believes prices will keep rising. It's circular logic. It's mass delusion, and it works, right up until it doesn't. The warning signs were there. Agricultural prices had been falling since 1920. European economies were struggling. Consumer debt was at record levels. But nobody wanted to hear it. The party was too good to leave early. October 24th, 1929, Black Thursday. The market opens, and something feels wrong. Sell orders start coming in, like not a trickle, a flood. Prices drop. People panic. They call their brokers. Sell, sell, sell. The phone lines jam. The ticker tape machine falls 90 minutes behind. Nobody knows what anything is actually worth in real time. Fear fills the gap. 11 wealthy bankers meet in secret at JP Morgan's offices to pool money and prop up the market. It works for 3 days. The weekend comes, people go home and think, and they decide, get out. Monday, Tuesday, the collapse resumes, and now it's permanent. By July 1932, the Dow Jones had fallen 89% from its 1929 peak. It would not recover to those levels until 1954, 25 years later. Now here's where it gets truly devastating, and this part gets left out of most history classes. The stock market crash alone did not cause the Great Depression. It was the trigger. What turned a bad recession into a decade-long catastrophe was what happened next. Here's something most people don't know about how banks work, and it's important. When you deposit $1,000 in a bank, the bank doesn't keep your $1,000 sitting in a vault. It lends most of it out. It keeps maybe $100 as reserve. That works perfectly fine, as long as everyone doesn't try to withdraw at the same time. After the crash, they did. Rumors spread that banks were failing, so people rushed to get their money out before the bank ran dry, which caused the bank to run dry, which confirmed the rumor, which caused more people to rush. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy on a national scale. Over 9,000 American banks failed between 1930 and 1933. Millions of ordinary people lost their life savings overnight, with zero government insurance. Zero. There was no FDIC yet, no deposit insurance. If your bank failed, your money was just gone. Teachers who'd saved for 30 years, farmers who'd mortgaged their land, widows living on their late husband's savings, all wiped out. And when people lost their savings, they stopped spending. When they stopped spending, businesses lost revenue. When businesses lost revenue, they laid off workers. When workers lost jobs, they stopped spending. You see how this spiral works? The economy didn't just slow down, it began to eat itself. Now, what did the government do while all of this was happening? Almost exactly the wrong thing. President Hoover, following the economic thinking of the time, believed in letting the market correct itself. Don't interfere, don't spend, balance the budget. The pain would be short. Markets always recover. The Federal Reserve, which should have been flooding the economy with money, instead raised interest rates. Why? To defend the gold standard, to protect the dollar's value against gold. They chose the currency over the people. Unemployment peaked at 25% in 1933. 1 in 4 working Americans had no job. In some cities, it was closer to 1 in 2. And then, incredibly, Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930 slapping massive taxes on imports. Other countries retaliated instantly. Global trade collapsed by 65%. American farmers and manufacturers lost their export markets overnight. What might have been a painful 2-year recession was now becoming something no one had words for yet. Something new, something total. They'd call it the Great Depression. Numbers are one thing, but let's talk about what it actually felt like. Families who'd owned their homes for 20 years, evicted. They'd set their furniture on the curb and the neighbors wouldn't look at them because they were afraid if they looked, they'd recognize themselves in a month. Men, grown men who'd worked since they were 14, stood in bread lines stretching around city blocks, not because they were weak, but because the economic architecture they'd built their lives inside had crumbled. The Dust Bowl hit the Great Plains, turning topsoil to dust, destroying farms across Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. Hundreds of thousands of families packed everything they owned into trucks and drove west, chasing rumors of work in California. But for most of them, they found absolutely nothing but more hardship and rejection. Children went to school hungry and came home to houses with no heat. Suicide rates climbed. Life expectancy dropped. Birth rates fell. People couldn't afford to bring children into a world that felt defeated. This wasn't a market correction. This was civilizational stress. And it was happening in the wealthiest country on earth. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt took office and did something radical. He decided the government was going to act. The New Deal, bank reforms, federal jobs programs. The FDIC so deposits would be insured. The SEC to regulate financial markets. Social Security, infrastructure projects that put millions to work building roads, dams, schools, bridges that still exist today. Did it fully end the Depression? Not immediately. The economy improved dramatically, then stumbled again in 1937 when Roosevelt prematurely cut spending. It took the massive government expenditure of World War II to truly complete the recovery, but the New Deal stopped the freefall. And more importantly, it restored trust. And trust, it turns out, is what money actually is. It's what markets actually run on. Not gold, not math, trust. The belief that tomorrow the system will still function. When that breaks, everything breaks with it. Every major financial crisis since 1987, 2001, 2008 has echoed the same pattern. Unchecked speculation, false confidence, systemic failure, delayed government response, and years of ordinary people paying for decisions they never made. The Great Depression didn't happen because people were stupid or evil. It happened because of a system that had no guardrails, and a set of beliefs about how economies work that turned out to be catastrophically wrong. And the most unsettling thing? Every generation seems to need to learn that lesson from scratch. So the next time you hear someone say, the market always corrects itself, that prosperity is permanent, that this time is different. Remember October 24th, 1929. Remember the man sitting on the steps, and ask yourself, who's going to be sitting there next time? If this made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on how 2008 rhymed with 1929, that video is right here. I'll see you in it.